What has been the best corporate Darwin Award? A decision made by a company that basically killed the business? Welcome to Reddit Cinema. Take a seat and enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, hit the subscribe button below, and hit the bell to never miss a video. LifeLock's advertisements with the co-founder Todd Davis SSN on the sides of trucks and on TV, telling people to try and steal his identity because LifeLock was protecting him. Don't antagonize the internet. They did steal his identity 13 times. Within 2 years, he lost millions of dollars. Also, his identity was stolen so much, the FTC ended up fining the company $12 million for deceptive advertising because they weren't 100% effective like the ads claimed. After that, the company kept getting fined and sued. It's still around, but nowhere close to the strength it was.
Flashback.
I'm Ray. Ray who?
Identity theft. There's a new victim every 3 seconds. Over 70 million people had personal information compromised in recent security breaches.
Ray Skywalker.
AOL was the gateway to the internet, complete with Discord analog, messaging, email, and search. When they decided to stick to dial-up and refused to become a broadband ISP, they killed themselves. They had a huge contented user base and threw it all away. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought of too. They were like the Microsoft Windows of the internet that everyone needed to have on their PC, then disappeared almost overnight when it was impossible to load AOL anymore.
I immediately regret this decision.
When London decides to allow Uber into the city, the independent and infamous Black Cabs taxis decided to go on strike as they feared the competition. And many argued Uber would destroy the cultural significance of the English black cabbie. When the black cab drivers went on strike, it forces the taxi users of the city to use alternative services, that is Uber. People realized how much more efficient and cheaper Uber was, and when the black cabs returned to the roads after the strike had ended, people had already taken to Uber. The black cabs has effectively destroyed their own business by their own hubris.
Yeah, listen. We f***ed up.
Max's, Bullfrog, Westwood, and others, selling out to EA. Rest in peace Max's. SimCity was never the same. I will never forgive EA for all the shit they pulled with this most recent SimCity. It's like they just wanted to kill what was left of the community that was still hoping for a legit follow-up to SimCity 4. At least Cities Skylines came out a little later.
Eventually.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
Osborne Computers announced their improved new computer too early. Everyone stopped buying the current one. It took so long for the new one to be released that the company had basically folded.
I've made a huge mistake.
Wagon Computers. They had, early in the late 70s, a solid, well-respected office automation system. It was multi-user, fast, and reliable. The suite included a database, spreadsheet and word processor and other utilities and was bulletproof. They jealously guarded it, not letting anyone write software for it or allowing licensing. Guess what? Microsoft and IBM came in with MS-DOS, licensing the operating system, and allowing literally anyone to write software for it. One tanked. It was a perfect storm. I loved that system, and used it in the Army, Reserves in the 80s and early 90s. Then the system just went away, and we had IBM PC clones.
Eventually.
You blew it! You had it all and you blew it!
Telltale Games buying a lot of different expensive IPs to recreate the success of their first The Walking Dead game season without realizing that the success was due mostly to timing, when the market was tapping into the post-apocalyptic horror, and it was smack dab in the middle when The Walking Dead series was running. To mitigate the expenses of these expensive IPs, Minecraft, Guardians of the Galaxy, Batman, etc., they forced the developers to work their freaking asses off without much compensation. putting them to finish a 2 to 3 hour episode within 2 months or so. Not to mention they were working on multiple games at once with this strict timeline. No one were buying the other games, so Telltale's response was to buy even more to try and see if something would stick, but alas it did not, and it ran itself into bankruptcy earlier this year, leaving the final season of the Walking Dead game, still the best-selling game they've ever produced, unfinished. Skybound, who also produces the Walking Dead comics, thankfully picked it up, and the season and saga will be completed. But man, I don't know what the CEOs at Telltale Games were thinking. Yik Yak, an app designed around anonymity and community messaging, absolutely dominated every college campus culture. They decided to remove anonymity, essentially becoming local Twitter. By the time they reversed it, the app was dead. Yik Yak board meeting notes. Anonymity is our primary selling point, but what if we got rid of that entirely? That seems a little risky. Let's do a trial run where you have the option to remain anonymous, but you have to click an extra button to do so on every single post, so we can see how much people actually care about anonymity. 2 months later, 99% of users are still clicking the anonymous option on every single thing they post. Maybe our users like anonymity? F*** 'em. Just remove that option and automatically downvote any posts that mention competing apps, so people won't be able to coordinate going elsewhere, and it'll be fine. 2 months later. Oh well, we did everything that we could. There was really no way for us to predict a mass exodus like that.
A few moments later.
I used to work for a company who thought they could save money by stopping honoring their refund policy, but leave it up on the site. Part of why we got so much business was a very much customer-friendly refund policy. 6 months into it, a team of lawyers walked in and requested to speak with the owner. Turns out this policy decision pissed off a very wealthy private citizen who didn't mind throwing money around to teach a very expensive lesson.
No, I taught you a lesson.
MySpace. They had already lost a good chunk of users to Facebook, but they still had a core community of users they completely alienated with their redesign. Hoof and Tumblr. LiveJournal bans and users flocked to Tumblr. A decade later, Tumblr bans and users flocked to Tumblr. Shoot themselves in the foot by banning porn. I still have my blog there, but now I'm down to logging in a few times a week rather than a few times a day. Had my account for like a day after the ban. Before it was randomly nuked and barely anyone I followed was posting anything. They really destroyed the website overnight.
I feel dumb just thinking about it. Duh, I'm stupid. I like
Porn.
Duh.
You like what?
Not
Porn.
Ha! I don't even know what that is.
me too. I don't know what anything is.
Nokia actively decided not to jump on the smartphone train when it first started being a thing. Before the iPhone, Nokia had something like 70% of the international phone market. A couple years later they had like 5%.
Eventually.
I mean, MoviePass is still holding on, but it's up there. Juicero is pretty hilarious too. Also, every 6 to 8 months some tech douchebag thinks he's disrupted ride sharing because he stumbled across the concept of a bus. Are you implying Juicero ever had business? Reality is beyond parody with the Juicero story. Silicon Valley tycoons invested $150 million into the company. Big celebrities like Kobe Bryant and Oprah endorsed it, and it all fell apart when customers discovered you didn't need their juices. You could squeeze the juice out of their bags with your bare hands. You were basically paying to have a machine drain a juice bag into a cup.
Flashback.
Target in Canada. Canadians know what a Target store is. We've been to the States. When Target made it incredibly expensive, they built new stores instead of buying existing retail space. Move into the Canadian market. Instead of duplicating the American stores, it opened understocked poor Walmart clones. You know, to see if there was a market before they committed to the market. Even though they had invested hundreds of millions on buildings, corporate padding, staffing, etc. So Canadians looked in once, sniffed, and went to Walmart. Gone in months, at a huge loss.
I'm out of here.
IBM, we'll make the computers and Bill, you write the software. Bill, can I keep the software? IBM, yeah, who gives a shit about software? When you got to the part where IBM basically scoffed at what would become Windows 95, I laughed. That's checkmate. WordStar. Back when personal computers were new and word processing software was the killer app for DOS PCs, the word processor king emerged, WordStar. They did great until this operating system called Windows came out. They didn't think Windows was going to be a big deal, so they delayed making a version of WordStar for it. Once Microsoft came out with Word, their fate was sealed.
A few moments later.
Ah, so you come crawling back, you cheap sack of shit.
Not exactly a business-killing decision, but one that was hurtful nonetheless. How about Sega's console business? They basically shoot themselves multiple times in their foot by releasing a bunch of add-ons for the dying Mega Drive, Genesis in the US. At the same time they released the Saturn in an impressive clusterfuck of a launch only to announce shortly that they were working on a new console, Dreamcast. By the time this was out, the public had lost faith in Sega's console department practices. Even though the Dreamcast was an excellent system all around, both the handling of Sega of Japan and Sega of US meant that people were very reluctant to invest in something that could have been dropped in a few years. By that time Sony had already made a name for themselves, stepping on Sega's idiotic attitude towards their developers and customers, which meant that the release of the PS2 only cemented their demise. These guys basically drove themselves out of the console market in a short year span in a very spectacular manner.
Flashback.
I like to refer to this whole thing, from start to finish, as a real Mickey Mouse operation. But that'd be an insult to Mickey Mouse.
Don't forget to like, comment, hit the subscribe button below, and hit the bell to never miss a video.
Does he look like a bitch?